Linda Hurst.
And I'm Jim Carney. And this is EdCast, a program created and produced by educators for everyone interested in education.
Today, obtaining a college degree is more important than ever. Social and economic mobility is linked to college graduation. President Obama has made access to higher education a key point in the president's agenda, focusing attention on the pivotal role community colleges play. Today, Dr. Felix Matos Rodriguez, the president of Hostos Community College, joins me to discuss the opportunities and challenges presented by community colleges and the ways they can realize their potential as transformers of students' lives.
Later on in the program, I'll pay a visit to Dr. Thomas Bailey, the director of the Community College Research Center and director of the National Center for Analysis of Post-Secondary Education and Employment at Teachers College, Columbia University. We'll chat about his views on the future role that community colleges will play in higher education in the 21st century. But we begin with Linda and Dr. Matos Rodriguez in the studio.
My guest today is Dr. Felix Matos Rodriguez, president of Hostos Community College. A scholar, leader, and advisor to numerous organizations, he is a member of the governing board of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. President Matos Rodriguez also serves on the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, FedCap, and the Achieving the Dream Advisory Committee. Welcome to EdCast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Delighted to be here, Linda. Thank you for the invite.
Particularly thrilled to have you here.
Me too.
You were recently invited to participate in two very important educational forums, which I think give you a broad perspective on the community colleges today and what their functions could be. Could you tell us about those two symposia that you participated in?
Well, I had the opportunity to be in Albany in a symposium about the importance of community colleges and why really, if we want to improve our economy, if we want to get more people into jobs, and we need to continue to invest in community colleges, right? And you're very familiar with community college. You know the great service that we give to the students. We focus on teaching. We're close to the students in terms of being located nearby the communities where the students come from. We are affordable. Right? And we have a track record of working with either students of color or students that come from low-income backgrounds. And I always say that people go to the places where they know they're treated with respect and they know that they're, that they're taken care of. So I think that accounts for the increase in the number of students that go to community colleges. People don't often think about it, but about half of all the undergraduates in this country today attend a community college, and a great number of the students that continue into four-year programs or graduate programs come from community college. So that's why I think there's so much attention coming to the sector.
And the White House Forum focused on what? And what was
the White House had sort of two tracks. That Summit with the President had a track on getting more low-income students into higher ed, and I think that was more focused in some ways in students attending private institutions that have done a very, very good record of attracting not just minorities, but students who come from poor backgrounds into their undergraduate mix. But it also had a track on how community colleges can improve on some areas like remediation and some of the things where we need some progress to make sure that students advance and complete and graduate. So it had those two tracks. We love the attention on getting more resources to the community colleges. We want low-income students to have every possibility open to them, not just selective colleges, right? We want them in our public institutions. We want them in our community college. A little bit of a critique to the president was that it was too much of a focus on getting them just to the selective schools. But we commend the president for making access to students who come from underprivileged households to be able to move up. We all know that in the 21st century economy, credentials matter. You're going to need that certificate. You're going to need that degree, and that's what we're hoping for, that everybody gets a chance to do that.
So one of the issues I know that have come up, of course, is enabling students to not only enter but to succeed and to graduate. What would you say are some of the major challenges that students have to confront when they enter the community college? What are we seeing at Hostos and at CUNY in general?
I mean, many of the students, for example, are the first one in their families to attend college. So we assume that many of the lingo, the terms that we use, credit, courses, FAFSA for the financial aid, are things that everybody understands, right? We do because we are in the higher ed business. So it's important to sort of always provide good support for the student. Advising is something that's very, very important. That's why at Hostos we began 2 years ago the Student Success Coaches program.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So one of the things you say about advising, I think one of the problems that we see is that retention sometimes can be an issue, and not just at Hostos, but at many of the community colleges. So what would advising do, and tell then again about how the student success coaches would really work to help students?
The first thing, the student coach at Hostos, you get assigned that coach the moment you come to the college, and that person stays with you until you graduate or you transfer. So it doesn't depend that you are to this program or that program. That person stays with you all throughout. So you know there's somebody who has your back.
And what do they do for you?
They help you with registration in your first semester, selecting your courses, knowing what forms you need to fill out, knowing how to get your financial aid. You know, indispensable. If you don't have financial aid, you won't be able to take the courses, right? You also connect them with resources. Right? If you detect that a student is having issues with their testing, he or she might have some kind of learning disability. We have resources in the school. Sometimes they're not always used by other students. The coach will be the person that says, I want to connect you with the right office. If we have a faculty member, for example, that sees in the first month or so of the semester, you can detect who's not going to do well.
But you don't always know what you should do.
The coach will be the person in your English class that you will say, dear fellow, this student is not doing well. Here's some of the things that I think they're issues. Can we connect him with a tutor? Can we connect him with a service? So the coach will make sure that there's somebody tracking that, and that person can follow up with the student. In a month or so, make sure the student is taking advantage of that. That kind of more personalized attention, which is something that students in the more expensive private schools get 2 or 3 of, we want to have that for our students at Hostos. And I think that's going to make the difference, because you're going to have someone there that you can always connect to answer any question you might have.
Frankly, I think that will make a big difference. So when students, again, you're pointing out that the success coach is really going to be an ally, a friend, someone who can really intervene on the student's behalf. What about the students' academic preparedness? The Albany Symposia and the White House all focus on student readiness for college. To you, what does it mean to be ready for college, and what can we do to make sure that our students are ready for college?
There's 2 elements at least in college readiness. One is that you have the academic tools, the communication skills that you need, the mathematical skills that you need to be able to do basic college work, right? And that's one level of preparedness. There's another level that has to do with time management, to sticking to a schedule. Some of the other rules that even if you know the math and you know the English, if you don't do those, you're not going to do well in class. The 2 go hand in hand, right? It is always a hope that both of those skill sets are learned in either high school or a GED program. That doesn't happen, right? As you well know, a lot of students do not come ready either on the skill side or on the college readiness side. So we need to do a better job at identifying what those gaps are, identifying them early, having students understand what is it they're getting into. As you many know, they come and they take the test. At the beginning, they didn't quite know what they were getting tested for. They didn't know the consequences of that placement.
That's
right. So we need to do a much better job at making sure that they know what they're getting into, that they get the help that they can get, that we have a menu of options for the students to take advantage of. Some students might do very well with things that are online at their own pace. For some other students, it might not be because they don't have the discipline. So what I hope that we get to do at Hostos is that we have a menu of choices based on each student, and then also on the skills of the faculty. Right? People say that students sometimes come underprepared. Right? Faculty is also sometimes underprepared to teach these students. And we need to work with the faculty to say, you need this skill set, this pedagogy, this tools.
We have our different strengths. It's true.
To be able to do that. At the end of the day, what you want, what everybody wants, is that student to be ready, so they can fulfill their dreams.
A number of colleges now are looking backwards. They're looking to the high school. What do you think about the role of the high school and maybe even the elementary school in getting students ready for college? And what can we do once we're at the college level to help students in terms of their earlier education?
Well, I mean, that collaboration with the K-12 system is indispensable. I mean, the sooner we can intervene with the students, the sooner
So
we
you
can
would
provide them
advocate
with
for
help.
that, okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I think all of us in the college level would love to teach students that are ready at all levels, right? So at Hostos, we have a number of things that we're doing in that direction. For years, we've had the Hostos Lincoln Middle School and High School, very, very successful. About between 15% or 20% of the senior class graduates with their high school diploma and an associate's degree.
And that is a high school affiliated with the college?
Affiliated with the college. The students take either courses at Hostos or some of our faculty go to the high school. Not all the students complete their high school with an associate's, but sometimes they go into college with a semester, a year. All of that is both savings for the students, but also a sense of accomplishment.
That's early college.
Early college
model.
We also began now a second partnership with the Department of Education and Montefiore, which is a 914 school. And that's based under the P-TECH model that President Obama mentioned at the State of the Union about 2 years ago.
Tell us a little bit about the P-TECH model.
In that, you have an industry partner. In this case, is Montefiore. We are training students that are going to be going into healthcare fields.
Okay.
So we're taking students in 9th grade, and we have 2 tracks, nursing and community health worker. Right? Those students are going to do high school, and then they immediately will transfer to Hostos for a 2-year degree there. We hope that they get to accelerate, that by a more rigorous curriculum in high school, when they come to Hostos, that they can advance. But part of what we're doing is we're connecting them early on with real job mentorships, partnerships, so they get a much better sense as to what they're getting into. So if they're really suited up to be nurses, they found that early. They don't get to college, waste time, and then do something else. Right? And we're injecting that curriculum with a lot more of what the employers are telling us that they need in terms of, particularly in healthcare, is changing so much, right? That we need to continue to bring back into the curriculum. So it's a partnership between our faculty, Department of Education, and Montefiore, hoping that the pipeline of students, and in this case, students that come from diverse backgrounds in the Bronx, go into the healthcare area.
How will we identify those students?
Well, the great thing here is that it's not any kind of creaming. It's open to any student that wants to do this, right? Obviously, we're going to be doing a lot of work with them in helping them with their math and some of their skills that a 9th or 10th grader might want to do something in science, right? But might not have the skill set. So that's part of what we're trying to do now, to make sure that any student that has that desire gets that help, gets that intervention early on, both with Department of Education faculty and our Hostos faculty.
So that P-TECH model, as you said earlier, it links schools with an industry. Can you tell us other models in other places, like what they do or what kind of industry would be a part of that?
The initial one was P-TECH, which is in technology with IBM, and that's based out of one of our Brooklyn CUNY schools, right?
Okay.
There's a number of other ones dealing with the film and industry. So what you're trying to connect is with an industry partner, and they're being replicated all over the country.
And they give jobs to students. They try to.
It depends, right? In the case of IBM says you'll be first in line if you've been through the school if you apply for the job. Montefiore has pledged to give preference. Obviously, it's very tough for an employer to be making a promise.
Right.
They're going to be 100, 200 jobs immediately down the line over there. But think about it. That student is going to know people at Montefiore.
See the advantages, absolutely.
And we know that aside from being ready for a job, networks matter. Mentorship matters. Those are some of the things that are going to be here. You would know somebody at the hospital already. You probably would have done a summer. You're a known quantity, right? And you also know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, so you know something about that business. My co-host Jim Carney had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Thomas Bailey at Teachers College. As you know, he's done a tremendous amount of research on community colleges. So let's hear what Dr. Bailey has to say.
Teachers College at Columbia University is home to the Community College Research Center. Dr. Thomas Bailey is the director. The original concept for community colleges, what was the goal or the aim in establishing the two-year school?
The very first community college, which was established more than 100 years ago, was initially designed to really provide the first 2 years of a 4-year college education. I think the view was that the senior college would focus on more advanced instruction, and the community college or the junior college would work with the late stage adolescents. So that was the original idea. Now it's evolved a lot since then. After World War II through the 90s, especially in the 60s and 70s, there was tremendous growth. Two areas. One focused on occupational education, 2-year degrees primarily for students who would get those degrees and then go immediately into the workforce. And then there was also a growth of transfer-oriented education, which would be the first 2 years of a 4-year bachelor's degree. Community colleges are the open door institution of higher education. They really represent our society's, or part of our society's, commitment to opportunity.
What are some of the challenges that community colleges are facing today?
Well, the strengths are also, to some extent, the weaknesses. So if you're not selective, if anybody can come in, then of course you're going to get many students who aren't very well prepared, who don't have a lot of resources backing them up, who don't really understand what college is because their parents and their friends and other people have not been to college. They, in many cases, face significant economic hardships. That means that the majority of them work. A third of them have dependents. So all of these get in the way of and make it more difficult for them to take advantage of the education.
How can developmental or remedial programs at the community college succeed?
All right, so as I said, since the doors are open, many students arrive who are not well prepared in their academic skills. Not only do they not know some academic skills, but also they don't have experience in what we sort of call non-cognitive skills, that is, how to study, how to think about their own education, how to work with faculty, how to ask for help. And community colleges, because they have restricted resources, don't have a lot of personnel, don't have a lot of advisors that can help them do that. So what we think really needs to happen is that, first of all, we have to recognize that all of these students have potential. So rather than having special remedial programs for them, we think it's important that students get involved with their interests immediately. So rather than having special education for them for students who have weak skills, get them involved with what they're already doing and put the learning and strengthening of their academic skills as much as possible into the context of the programs that those students are in, so that you can take advantage of their interests that will kind of motivate them to learn the academic skills that they lack. In other words, if a student comes in with a specific interest, if they want to be a nurse, or they want to be in healthcare, or they want to be in information technology, then put them in an information technology class, and within that class, teach them the academic skills that they need. So I think that's a crucial question. And in addition to that, have faith that with support, those students can be successful.
What work is left in terms of research and creating better community college experiences for students?
So one thing we think that it's important is to try to develop more coherent and structured programs that students can go into, so that they don't get lost. Give them, here's your program, you take this program in an area of your interest, and And if you want to change, fine, but come to me and talk to me about that change. So it's a difference between saying take up anything as opposed to saying, here's your program, you can change, but talk to me. Many students don't know what their interests are. So it's very important that we concentrate on helping students figure out what it is they want to do. So I think that's a very important area for research.
Now back to Linda and Dr. Matos in the studio.
Teachers College has obviously he's done a tremendous amount of research looking into how students succeed in the community college. I noticed when we were talking about the White House Summit, they were talking about getting students interested in the STEM fields earlier, that it's too late often to introduce students to the STEM fields when they're already full-blown adults. What do you think of that, and what are ways that we might, at a community college level, help students identify their interest in that?
In some ways, I think that the STEM analogy applies to a whole range of things, right?
Okay.
If somebody doesn't get exposed to poetry early,
True.
they won't. I mean, it'd be tougher for them. I mean, you can always appreciate it, right? But so I think the same thing with the sciences and the math. I think that there's certain taboos that we have in terms of math early on, that it's hard, and that sets some barriers that we need to sort of break in people's minds, right? That we all use math in different ways, and we're all good at math. But the idea is that in these areas where we know that both there's need, there's employment, that we need to channel most students there. And I think that the earlier they get exposed to different kinds of fields, different kinds of areas, the better for them.
What are some of the things we're doing on the Hostos campus? I know we're doing some really exciting things that I think you might want to use as a model.
One of the things that I think is very important for us is that we are actually lobbying to be able to expand the work that we do, both on allied health fields and in natural sciences, right? We don't have all the space that we need on the campus to do that. For those kinds of programs, you need dedicated facilities. Right? You need labs, right? So we are, with the support of the Board of President in the Bronx, hoping to build a brand new allied health and natural science complex building, which will allow us to have state-of-the-art facilities. We will also have a community clinic, which will help serve medical needs in our community, but also be a training locale for our students. It will free up space in the campus for other programs. I'm sure that we're all hurting for
Anyone who
space.
wants to donate money, who's listening, can do so right now, right?
Well, but it's a way for the future. There's a number of very good. If you're a student in the Bronx, right, and you want to be an occupational therapist, if you want to be EMT technician, right, you cannot go to any CUNY school and study that. We don't have the programs, right? If you want to pay a CUNY tuition, you have to go elsewhere, right? So what we're saying is that this is a building which is not just an Hostos building, but a key economic development infrastructure piece of the pie in the Bronx. That's why we are very committed to it, and and it's a way to also take, going back to what we talked about President Obama, low-income individuals, Latinos, African American women, the type of student that comes to Hostos that is vastly underrepresented in healthcare and in the natural sciences, to begin to build that pipeline so they can also be taking advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, I think that you pointed out that the getting more minorities and women. I was just reading today before we did the show this morning that a new study shows that in the science classroom, teachers engage more with boys than they do with girls, and probably unconsciously. But I think these are the things that keep women out of the sciences from an early age. They start early, and then you're talking about minorities. And we also have some summer programs. I mean, I think for our students, well, not just for our students, but for many community college students, I don't know if they've ever envisioned themselves in these fields, to be an engineer, to go into the physical sciences. So what can colleges do to really tell students that this is something that you can strive toward?
Well, exposure at all levels is always the best way of doing it. The other thing that works very well is giving students a little taste of research, right? When they get that hands-on experience, that
working
taking
in a
the-
lab or?
Exactly, and we're doing, for example, we have a partnership with Lehman. We began doing it 2 summers ago, in which some of our students go during the summer and work with Lehman faculty in their labs with a research project and then present back on the campus, right? It's a way to, A, make sure that we tell them the associate is a great thing. We want you to continue with a baccalaureate, right? They see other mentors in the health fields that can help them in their careers. And one other thing, which is an added advantage from my point of view too, is yes, the students are connecting, but so are our faculty. So it also leads to a lot more collaboration between our faculty at Hostos and faculty in some of the senior colleges like Lehman. So the students win, but also the faculty members win.
You know, it seems from what you've said and other people have said that public colleges are at a disadvantage when it comes to getting money. And I know that you've had some thoughts about
yes.
philanthropy. Tell us a little bit about what you've noticed, just
Well,
from your own experience.
Any forum I get, I tell people, to the private colleges, the average amount per full-time student that they give in endowment gifts, grants, and all that is $46,000. That's the average that a student in a private college gets from foundations, endowments. $46,000 private school, $372 in the community college. I mean, the gap is humongous. And the gap is hurts more when you think that the students in the community colleges have the largest amount of need. They come from households that are poorer. They tend to be parents. They tend to be working full-time or part-time. They might have more academic needs. So we need more
We need more
resources
money rather than less.
in the community college. So the foundations, the private sector, they need to invest a lot more in the community college. And if you think about it, right, if you're a business guy, if you went to the business school, they talk to you about return on investment. The return on investment, which is not the way that I often like to think about a public good like higher ed, but you know, we're talking about resources.
That's the terminology used today.
Right? Is a lot higher on a student from a community college than a student that is going to a private school that probably had a more robust set of opportunities, had tutoring, had mentoring, had resources to be the student that he or she is. We want those same resources on the community college level. And if the playing field was a bit more level, the results on our end would be much more dramatic.
Because it is a worthwhile
It is.
investment.
You teach the students.
Yeah,
You
indeed.
know the potential, you know the passion, you know the desire to move ahead, and we also know the benefits.
We're going to end on that note because there's nothing more to say. Thank you so much for
Thank you
letting us
for the
have
invitation.
some insight in really what's going on in the community colleges and the vital function that they serve. President Felix Matos Rodriguez of Hostos Community College, my president, I'm so happy to have you here and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If you have any comments or suggestions, we'd like to hear from you. Drop us an email at cunyedcast@gmail.com. That does it for this edition of EdCast.
Until next time, class dismissed.